Both the PS5 and Xbox Series X consoles are great. In fact, we gave each of them an 8 out of 10 in their respective reviews, but that doesn't mean they're identical. They both arrive at similar goals through different means, from form factor to storage to controllers and more. Here, IGN editors Jonathan Dornbush from Podcast Beyond and Ryan McCaffrey from Podcast Unlocked took a look at 6 major categories to see which console does what best.
It'd be one thing if the PS5 were just big, which it is, but what exacerbates the issue is that the Xbox Series X is a more powerful console on paper that is just as quiet and runs just as cool in a much, much smaller form factor. And in a vacuum, this would just be a fanboy talking point, right? But the real world implication of the PS5 size is that it genuinely does not fit into a lot of living room entertainment centers, including mine. It's got to go on the top of that thing, regardless of whether it stood tall or laid down horizontally. So, basically, it fails the IKEA test, is the unfortunate thing. My PS5 is going to have to live on top of this, which, hey, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but at least the Series X can live comfortably inside it. Now, the good news is that, of course, the most important thing, the PS5 stays quiet, stays cool, and that is the most important thing at the end of the day, but it comes at the cost of taking up a lot of space.
As long, of course, as you don't conceal the PS5 in a glass or plastic case like some Best Buys have been doing, as we saw. But no, I completely agree with you. Right now, my PS5 is sitting on the top of my IKEA TV stand because I cannot fit it into the shelving underneath. I think it fits what the system's look is going for because it is certainly a statement piece that is not meant to be hidden, but you're absolutely right. The versatility of being able to put the Xbox Series X within one of the cubby holes of an IKEA shelving unit or somewhere else is just so much easier to navigate and use when you're trying to rearrange your TV view for the next 7 years. It's a lot to have to consider. Even though the PS5 does definitely take up a lot of space, what's going on inside the system is really impressive because the PS5's SSD is just really the real deal. It is so impressive to see in motion. As Luke Riley mentions in his PS5 console review, it takes under a minute to get from the console completely shut off to getting in-game and being ready to web swing in Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. It is so quick and so amazing. It's startling to experience as someone who's been grappling with the PS4's really slow and cumbersome UI, and it's an absolute game changer in breaking down the time it takes to get to what these consoles are really meant to do, play video games. So that is one of the best parts about it, and even though that's going to really, really cut down on my time on Twitter, sadly, it is a speed that's present throughout the entire experience. Switching from Miles to, say, Astro's Playroom is even quicker than that, and it lets me jump between them in seconds without ever leaving a game thanks to the new control center. And more than that, the PS5 UI prioritizes ease of getting you into the game. There are no extraneous menus, and pulling up overlays and other features like the Create button is nearly instantaneous, which is a big jump from the PS4. The Xbox may really have that awesome quick resume feature, and I can't ignore that for sure, but the speed in which you're jumping from games on the PS5 hasn't really made me think twice about the lack of it. And that custom SSD on PS5 means something like Marvel's Spider-Man erases load times. Fast travel is nearly instantaneous, and Miles enters and exits indoor locations without a hitch. It's beautiful, and after playing on PS5 for just a few days even, I can't imagine going back.
Yeah, you're totally right. It's going back to the very first leaked tech demo of Spider-Man running on the PS5 SSD where it basically had no loading time. It is the real deal, and it's really, really fantastic to see. But the price of that speed, especially more so, they're on both consoles, but especially on the PS5, unfortunately, is the storage factor. While, neither of these two $500 consoles comes away smelling particularly good on this one, the Series X has 802 gigabytes of usable storage space. That's significantly more than the PS5, which is rocking 667 gigs of usable space after OS and system files. So I did the math on that. I went to journalism school. Math is not my strong suit, but I believe it's a 17% difference between the PS5 and the Xbox, which, more practically means you're talking maybe 2 fewer big games that you can store on your hard drive at any given time. And worse, while the Xbox has that expensive $220 Seagate drive for the expansion card option, the PS5 at launch has 0 storage upgrade options at launch. Those are going to come, of course, but we just don't know when, and we don't know how much they're going to cost.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely unfortunate that essentially there is a Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War's worth of space difference between the Xbox Series X and the PS5, and whether or not whichever console you choose, I think you are definitely going to have to be making some cuts and deleting games and re-downloading games if you try to keep too much on your hard drive, which for people who have to deal with data caps is definitely an unfortunate consideration while we're waiting on more affordable expansion options. And I definitely think that is a launch problem, especially for the PS5 being under 700 gigs when we're used to much more even in this generation. The good news, I think, on the PS5 side is that whatever you're probably playing is going to feel different on the PS5 than anywhere else because of the DualSense controller, and that is just it is such a game changer for me. The DualShock 4 has been my favorite controller since its launch, but even after only a couple weeks with the DualSense, I think it's now taken that place as my favorite. It is pretty amazing to use. The DualSense's design and build quality, its weight and feel, and the button trigger quality, it's so incredible to hold in your hands, especially compared to some of the lighter DualSense 3 and 6 axes we've had in PlayStation past. But the biggest advancements, of course, are the haptic feedbacks and the adaptive triggers that are in there, and they are really impressive to feel just from the jump. And I think the biggest showcase of this is Astro's Playroom, which uses all of these features and really is meant to be a technical showcase for all of this, and it really translates the sensation of rain falling on your character, or a gust of wind trying to push you off a platform, or the difference between running along sand and swimming through water. It feels silly to say you feel those sensations, but the controller's haptic feedbacks can have such a variety of feelings to them that's really brought across both by the haptic feedback itself, the different changes in the adaptive triggers, and of course the speaker in the DualSense really does make a difference when you're able to feel the different terrains that you'll be walking across. Of course, I think the thing with the Xbox controller, they've really taken the if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach, and that makes sense because the Xbox One controller, building off of what the 360 controller did so well, is one of, if not, I think, the most universally beloved controller designs out there. It is definitely beloved, and certainly my second favorite when it comes to right below the DualSense now. I think that controller is a fantastic design, especially if you like offset sticks, as I know you do, Ryan. And so if you want something that you love already, the Xbox controller makes no sense, but the DualSense really is pushing the active play in a different place, and it seems to really be doubling down on that. And obviously it's going to depend on developers using these tools in the future, but the DualSense, at least at launch, proves that this isn't just a gimmick. It could actively change the way we're feeling in-game sensations and translating those to the players themselves, and that is a really impressive leap at the start of this generation.
I'm really curious to see how the DualSense shakes out over the course of the generation, because you're right, like the Xbox, they've been honing gamepad perfection for 2 generations now, and that's kind of a double-edged sword, right? It doesn't feel new when you fire it up and you put it in your hands with the Series X, but on the other hand, it's already awesome. It's incumbent upon developers now to really embrace the DualSense, which they, quite frankly, they really didn't with the 6-axis, and they didn't with the Nintendo Switch's HD Rumble. So and in fact, they didn't with the Xbox One's Rumble triggers really either. So these things do not have a good historical track record, and I hope that finally that record of futility breaks with the DualSense, and that developers do embrace it, which of course segues perfectly into launch lineup, and I have to give it to you on that one.
Yeah, I definitely cannot complain, especially after having reviewed several of the games in the launch lineup for the PS5. I think both systems have a lot of next-gen upgrades of existing games. So No Man's Sky, Maneater, Borderlands 3, Destiny 2. We're going to be seeing a lot of next-gen upgrades for the games we've been playing for the last few years, and that makes so much sense given how many games are now sort of being used as a platform and ongoing for years. But I think the PS5 launch lineup has a lot of, if not console exclusives, at least exclusives that aren't on Xbox at launch. And that includes, of course, first-party stuff like Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, which I reviewed and gave a 9. That's on PS4 as well, but is a really, really great showcase for the PS5. There's Astro's Playroom, as I mentioned, which is a free pack-in that everyone will be able to play and really is a perfect showcase for what the DualSense can do at launch. We've also, of course, got Demon's Souls coming, which is a PS5 exclusive. It's not on last gen as well. This is from Bluepoint, who made Shadow of the Colossus for PS4. They know their way around a remaster, and so this is a really, really exciting opportunity, I think, to see what PS5 exclusives will be able to do from the jump. And then, of course, there's also some other cross-gen stuff like Sackboy, A Big Adventure, The Pathless, Bugsnax. There's a host of really exciting games, and even stuff like Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered coming at launch. There are a lot of really exciting opportunities that you can get on PS5 that you can't get on Series X at launch, and obviously there are a ton of great third-party games, and we'll finally be able to see how those things compare, like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Watch Dogs Legion, and whatnot on both systems. But if you're looking for brand new games that you can only play on one of these two next-gen systems, I think the PS5 kind of takes that handily.
Can't argue with you there for the time being. That said, as far as legacy and catalog and bringing everything, all the money you've spent forward over the last actually more like 7 to 14 plus years at this point, 15 years, the Xbox has been doing the work here, and it shows with regard to compatibility. Every single Xbox One game, unless it's got the word Kinect in the title, works just fine on the Series X, and many of them actually run at higher resolutions and or higher frame rates on the new Xbox as well. Now, this also applies to the large catalog of the backward compatible 360 games that are coming forward as well, and even some of the original Xbox games that now work 3 generations later from the original Xbox to the Series X, like Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, quite possibly my single favorite role-playing game of all time. It ran in 480p back on the original Xbox, of course. This is the pre-HD era. It runs at 1080p now, and it looks great. It looks super crisp and clean. I mean, hey, Sony's done a good job of playing catch-up with regard to compatibility. A lot of PS4 games are now compatible with the PS5, but you just won't be digging back any further than the PS4 as far as into the PlayStation's past than that. So while you've got PlayStation Plus offering that catalog of PS4 titles for PS5 owners and thus subscribers of PS Plus, it still just can't hold a candle to the Xbox, and particularly with the compatibility and Game Pass on top of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, I mean, I even would say, I'd go a step further and say I owe PS5 backward compatibility with PS4 probably to Xbox's initiatives this past generation. If Xbox hadn't pushed so much on that, we may not have even seen that be a thing going into this next generation. They obviously proved how important that was to the fans and how important it is for gaming in general to have this stuff preserved and continue to live on. As you said, it is great that we're able to carry our PS4 library, save for, I think, 8 to 10 games or so. It's a very small number that don't work. The majority of the PS4 library will work, and we'll have to see what PlayStation does with PS Now, their streaming service that has dipped into PS3 and PS2 games in the past. We'll see if they upgrade that in the future, but as of right now at launch, if you want to have your entire gaming catalog with you, the Xbox Series X or Series S is the place to go.
We hope what we've highlighted here helps you if you're still sitting on the fence, but there's so much to enjoy no matter which console you go with. We're in the next generation now, and whether you're holding a Series X controller or a DualSense, you can really feel the difference. For more on the Xbox Series X and PS5, check out our in-depth tech analyses for Spider-Man Miles Morales and the updated version of Gears 5, and for all your next-gen news, reviews, and much more, you're already in the right place here at IGN.